I promise you. I'm gonna let her introduce herself because I cannot tell you how amazing she is. And I love for my people to talk about themselves because you know what? That's what brand ego is all about. So come on, Miss Ebony, the Ratchet Sage Green, and let us know. Come on.
Yes, I'm Ebony Green of Authentic Distinction. Over here is where we want you to be authentically distinct. That means you are a badass in everything that you do, and you are showing your ass, or like to call it, your actionable safe spaces everywhere you go. So you're an innovator, you're a visionary, you're getting things done. And those are the people I work with, and they call me the Ratchet Sage because I'm not playing with your greatness. I refuse to see you out here ashy in these streets. I want to make sure you got the lotion and the knowledge for you to get to where you're trying to go in a powerful way.
Yes, and see, Ebony is all the things. And for full disclosure, yes, Ebony is a client of mine, but she also still, like I said, we've been working together for a minute. So you don't get the misconception that once you start branding that you're done. As long as you're still going through the iterative process, baby, there's still some things but it's not about tweaking your website. That ain't going to do shit for you. Trust and believe. It is about all the other things to make sure that you're showing up consistently, confidently, and in character. All right. And by character, I mean all the great character traits. I ain't talking about playing nobody else's game. Okay. So this is a Ask Brandma Anything kind of episode. But Ebony already knows a lot. But so we're gonna find out what questions she got. How about that? If she have any questions. Otherwise, we're gonna just talk about some shit. So come on with it, Miss Ebony. What we doing today?
Yeah, well, I'm respectfully rebellious today, and I am a proud brand baby. So I have gotten a lot of knowledge from you, a lot of knowledge, but I still got questions. That's why you can't let me go. You stuck with me for life. So I think the first question that I had that I wanted to talk with you about one of my early lessons with you was about going from a vertical niche to a horizontal niche. And we did extensive talking about how that can go for me. And I'm actually starting to implement that with my marketing and my brand strategy, because they're different things. You taught me that. But I'm implementing that in my strategy for 2023. And I'm realizing I don't think it's as clear to me today as I thought it was when we were having that conversation a few months ago. I was like, well, maybe that's something that we could talk about, is going from that vertical niche to a horizontal niche, where you're not just a coach working one-on-one with people and doing group programs, but now you're growing into this thought leadership and leading your brand into this thought leadership of becoming a speaker. And, you've been pushing me to write that manuscript and it'll be finished soon.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, so now what I do with this?
And I can understand that challenge because sometimes when we start off, because I know how you came to me and all this, and just for full disclosure, again, Ebony came as an authenticity coach, but now Ebony has a coaching academy. She didn't tell y'all that she has a coaching academy, which is different when you're putting your personal brand on front, and that is what she's moving into for 2023. She wants to be the forefront and the face of this brand that she's building, which means that she now has to get out there and she has to speak. She has to step into her public speaking. She knows all the things. I promise you, to watch this chick's mind work, you just stop, sit back, and like, oh, I'm so amazed. And to be able to do it so fluidly in a live type of thing, I promise you, if she never wrote a word down, you would never know it. That's how prolific she is when she speaks. And I can't even tell y'all the last time I ever used the word prolific. So that's some shit right there.
I'll bring those big words out. I will bring a big word out. Yes, I will.
And so for her to now lean into her personal brand, and you guys know I talk about having your personal brand endorse your business, and that's what she's doing. But it's also because she wants to take a step back because of the influence she had once she leaned into to endorsing her business. She had all of these different things come at her that she wasn't having before, and it's because Ebony knows what she wants. Sometimes she just like, you know what, we got to go around this tree so I can get it. And she always talks about putting stuff up on the shelf. And until she pulls it down off the shelf, y'all are not going to worry her. Trust and believe.
Yes, and I mean that's actually been something that you could talk about as well. You've had to coach me through and advise me through some things I put on the shelf that really shouldn't have been put on the shelf.
Yeah.
I think I appreciate the grace. And this is one thing that for your listeners to know: when you're working with the Ghetto Country Brandmother, she cracked the whip, but she lets you have your freedom. Whether that means you're going to hang yourself or not is up to you. I hung myself a couple times because I wasn't listening. She said, focus on coaches. You have this amazing coach academy. Start training coaches and put that out as your call to action. And I was like, forget the coaches. I don't need to put it out as my call to action. But at the time, I was launching that Coach Academy twice a year. And now it's like, oh, I launch it 5 times a year now that I'm focused on it. But that's something I didn't need to put on the shelf. But I think that sometimes it takes a moment to process how you're going to actually take something off the shelf. And I think we do ourselves a disservice of putting something on a shelf instead of saying, I'm not really sure how to implement this. Can we schedule another session to talk about that? Versus we just put it on a shelf, and that creates inactivity. And that was one of the things that I learned with 3 things I put on the shelf that you told me about when we were working together throughout this year. I was like, yeah, I should have just asked her how to do this instead of putting it on a shelf.
And that goes to being able to own when you're ready. And that's one of the things I've always appreciated about working with you. We can go 2 hours and we can, like, I'm just not going to do it. And I have to accept that. And you have to accept that for yourself as well. If you were not ready for it, putting it on the shelf was your thing. And that's great. But now that you're taking it down, you have to pivot from, you know what? I'm not just marketing my business. I now have to break out my personal brand. The Ratchet Sage has to be on point. And that is not about being perfect, but it's just about, you know what? I got to show up. So now it's about closing that gap of being this business owner to being this face of the company, setting that reputation. And for you to start doing that, like I said, you already started your podcast. You do a live once a week on Facebook, but now it's getting in front of other audiences because you have to leverage other people's audiences to get them to get eyes on you.
Yeah.
And speaking, that which is direct marketing, speaking is the best platform for you because you're so prevalent in that. You're amazing at so many things, building out frameworks behind the scenes, but that's not your thing right now. Stepping into 2023 is about, you know what? I got to do some face work. I got to go out here and I got to show people what I'm talking about, what I'm about, how I'm going to do this thing. So I see you showing up on podcasts. And one of the things that I'm going to suggest to you is there's a website called Podcast Guest. And going on that website, there's a site there that allows you to just say, you know what, I'm looking to be on shows. And what they do is that they send you emails once a week of shows that are looking for guests, and being able to get out there and find people that, you know what, let's talk about this thing. They talk about wellness, they talk about weight, they talk about leadership, all these different things. And it cuts down on the hunt of trying to find somebody to book you as a guest. These come in once a week. I look at them. Nope, nothing this week. Oh, but here's one for next week. And waiting for them to just send them your thing, send a thing back. You guys get it together and you get to be in front of a new audience. And as long as these people are promoting their show, they're promoting you as well, because they would not ask you to come on if you were not going to make great programming for them. And this gives you the opportunity to do more with your voice, like I said, which is so profound. The message that you put out and not playing with your greatness. A lot of people need to understand what that means, especially when you're working with a coach. And I like that, Ebony. I don't promote a whole lot because y'all, I'm just gonna put out here, y'all coaches trying to train coaches how to be coaches. Oh, y'all, some of y'all get on my fucking nerves. I'm just gonna be real, for real, for real.
For real.
But I appreciate Ebony's thing because she talks about a unique, rare solution. And I hate that she talks about a unique, rare solution, which is totally different than this bullshit of, oh, I'm going to show you how to increase your coaching business. How you going to have a coaching business and you don't even know shit? So all you did was came out of a coaching program so that you can coach somebody else? That ain't nothing but a pyramid scheme. You miss me with the bullshit. Ebony, talk about that a little bit, because I know we're kind of in agreement on that.
Yeah, one of the things that brought us together when we started collaborating for Get Authentic as Fuck was helping people understand that they can be authentic, not just in life, but also in their brand, is what you focus on, but also in business, which we did with Cash Johnson, the ethical strategy. Shout out to my girl. She had a birthday yesterday. But also, one of the things that really frustrates me about my industry is that we have a lot of coaches out here that, one, just using the title because they think it's going to get them a sale. They think that that's the best way to sell a webinar or a course or a workshop, when you don't have to call yourself that to sell those things. If you got something to offer and you can teach somebody, they'll buy it, right? But what I really love to see is that this industry starts moving towards coaches actually honoring and having reverence for the fact that coaching is a healing modality. How can you heal somebody on something you haven't healed within yourself? So that's like a crack addict or a heroin addict If you haven't been one, how can you help them out of that situation? You can't. And so I work with and train coaches who are ready to come into this industry and disrupt it. They're ready to be respectfully rebellious to this industry and change it, to come in and say, listen, I actually have a whole solution, a whole blueprint, because I crawled out of this mud myself. And now that I'm doing well, I want to make sure that other people who are struggling with that same thing get this help in the way that only I can offer it, because I've gotten out of it. And that's what makes you distinct as a coach. That's what makes it clear to people what they can get from you that they can't get from another coach. And I think that distinction is necessary in this oversaturated industry where everyone is calling themselves a coach and almost no one has a solution or can offer transformative healing. So all of my coaches that go through my coach academy, they get transformative healing. They can offer it because they've given it to themselves. So they know what that blueprint is, and they can be authentic as they're going through it. They're not just saying what other people have told them to say. They're not using some done for you package that they got from somebody else. Their offers, their method, their process comes from their lived experience. And that's what you want if you're a coach. That's how you know what to put in those slides, what to put on that website, and what to put, what to put in those workbooks and worksheets. Otherwise, all you're doing is just rehashing what somebody else in this world has said, which is not transformative. And I said what I said.
There you go. Y'all, she said what she said, and I ain't mad about it. For real. And I love that. And so when Ebony and I started working together on her brand, that was one of the biggest things that she wanted to bring to the forefront, because we see people out here trying to do the courses of one to many because they're trying to make the money. They're trying to take, oh, I broke up with my boyfriend and turn it into a program. Come on now. We all have breakups. That's some bullshit. Oh, well, I'm grieving, and no shame on grieving, because like I said, my mama, my daddy, and my sister are gone. So I get that. But sweetie, trying to turn that into a program for real, maybe that's not the thing for you. It is not about you making your money, but it's about understanding what it is that you really have to offer, because then you end up feeling bad because nobody is buying your shit. Well, maybe I need to change my message. No, maybe everybody just needs to grieve in their own way. Maybe everybody just needs to break up on their own terms. You creating a course like, oh, you're going to heal, sweetie, ain't nothing going to heal a broken heart but time. I'm sorry. And that's coming from me because I'm 57 and that's some fuck shit. Y'all need to grow up. but the other thing I want to talk about is that when Ebony and I started working together, it was the Ratchet Sage, the Bold Domino, and the
philosopher thinker.
The philosopher thinker.
I was calling myself all three while labeling myself as an impact warrior. So if people ask me, what's your brand? Oh, I'm the impact warrior. And you were just cringing and clutching your pearls. You were like, that is not brandable. That's not repeatable. It's not memorable. I remember you saying that, and I was like, why isn't it? It totally makes sense to me. Until I started working with you, and you were like, why are you not calling yourself the Ratchet Sage? And I was like, that's hot. That sounds amazing. I don't know why. I'm not calling myself that. And I think part of it was the fear of owning the ratchet. And that I immediately got over that fear in working with you. You're like, you got to own what this world is trying to put on you. I was like, yes, that felt good to me. So and then also coming up with the business name, because if you remember when I first started working with you, it was Ebony L Green Coaching.
Yes.
But I couldn't think of anything better, right? And working with you and realizing what my unique rare solution is and how I can market that and talk about that in ways that are memorable and repeatable, right? It was authentic distinction came out. So shout out to the Ghetto Country Brandmother, y'all, to her face in public. Because without that, there wouldn't be the authentic distinction name for the business, and that's the business brand, but also the Ratchet Sage, which has been, it's opened a lot of doors for me in many ways. You've been in corporate America. They like the Ratchet Sage.
I love it. Now tell me, what are your plans for the growth for authentic distinction? And how does that change from what you thought you were going to do before we met?
It's interesting because when we first met, I think my focus was, as with most entrepreneurs, how can I impact more people? But I was thinking about it more live, one-on-one. And once again, not understanding going from that vertical niching to that horizontal niching, just never really took myself seriously as a thought leader. While meanwhile, doing all this philosophizing and defining things and breaking things down, and just didn't see it that way. And I think part of that was the playing small that you help us brand babies not do anymore. You say, we can't play small. You won't let us play small. And I was playing small for a long time. And so now it doesn't look like servicing more people. or having more sales or selling out offers. It actually looks like getting my coaching message into places it has not been. It looks like me networking in spaces that I have not felt comfortable as a Black autistic woman. Who is a little ratchet, and actually going into those spaces and saying, you actually do need my perspective here. This is actually what's missing from this space. And I think I have ran from things like that. Like I wrote down podcastguest.com because I will be checking that out as soon as we get off this podcast. But I would have ran from something like that prior to working with you, because I would have thought, well, there's no resonance there, and I don't know what their podcast is about, and who is their audience anyway? And I would be looking for this, synchronicity that I think is not necessary. And one of the things I've learned from you is when you're playing small, you're looking for that synchronicity because it gives you a reason to stay small. One of the things that I've learned from you is instead, my message is needed almost everywhere. Everyone needs to get into an actionable, safe space. Everyone, and particularly all visionaries, like anyone who's here to offer something to the world that we ain't gonna get from nobody else. And that's potentially everyone, but some people know it. And I want to reach those people. And all of those people are not checking for me and my brand. They're not on my social media sites. So I am going to have to go to places where people might be having conversations that I do not respect, that I do not like, but that's where my conversation needs to be had, because while those people are being there and being sheep and picking up all the stuff that has not been philosophized or thought through, here comes my voice saying, here's the real, and don't ever forget it. And now go get you some ass. I want you to stay in an actionable, safe space. And I think people need that. I think that that's exactly what they need in spaces that I would not have gone into before. So I think that's the biggest change, is that I think I played small and said, I don't need to be over there. They on some fuck shit over there. I ain't going over there. Right? And now I'm like, because they on some fuck shit over there, that's why my voice,
that's where I need to go.
There.
Yes.
That's where I need to go. And that's where the book came from. Like, you have to write the book because not everyone can work with you. Not everybody can sign up for, a program to work with you. And so it's time for you to get this concept out there and become more of that thought leader. And so it is impacting more people. It's just in ways I never dreamed to before.
And I like that when Ebony came up with Actionable Safe Space, we were on a Zoom call, and this chick wrote me 5 paragraphs. 5 paragraphs. I'm like, what the fuck? Because I'm asking her, what do you do? Tell me something. And she sent me 5, auntie, she calls me auntie, it's this, and this, and 5 paragraphs. And reading through, that's how we came up with Actionable Safe Space.
That's how Phyllis came up. That's how the Ghetto Country Brandmother came up with Actionable Safe Spaces. I came up with 5 paragraphs. And she said, so chick, what you want to do is get people into an actionable safe space? And I was like, yeah, writing that down right now, adding it to my bios everywhere with the TM. That's exactly how that happened, y'all.
But then the thing about it is how it has blossomed. She talks about bringing your social ass, bring your relational ass. And it's all about actionable safe spaces, bringing your ass wherever you go. So you cannot show up in any space without making sure that you are actionably safe for yourself and then others. And like I said, this is the shit that came out of her based on us working together. And while it did start with 5 paragraphs, it has blossomed into programs that, you know what? Your ass is ashy. Your actionable safe space is ashy. Now we're going to put some lotion on it, okay? And I'm telling you, this is why this is so important to me. This is why this work is important to me, because it allows you to put your message on a pedestal in a sense. And I'm not saying that it's the grandiose thing, but it allows you to make that clarity and that concision about this is how we're going to do this thing. This is how we own the part that, you know what? This is the message. And when I see people out here, because I realize that content calendars give me hives. Trying to create a content calendar with all the colors, it gives me hives. It makes me anxious. It does not work for me. And then trying to follow these pillars. Oh, this is my pillar. I have 5 pillars. No, everything that she has built has came from an actionable safe space. She brings her ass wherever she goes. When she walks into a room, it is all the things for me. And so everything that is growing, when I talk to you guys about brand architecture at the level of being a solopreneur, this is her brand architecture. A program could be made around social ass, and she can have somebody manage that. A space can be made for relational ass, and somebody can manage that. That is her brand growing. And it all started from an actionable safe space. Can you tell me what other asses? Because those are the only two asses that are coming to mind. What else? Because it's part of the book as well.
I use ass in so many different ways, like you taught me. And I think this is a really good moment to point out this point. I say to people all the time, this is why you need a brand, particularly if you're a visionary and you're a philosopher. You have this whole philosophy and it needs language to get to other people. And to me, working with you helped me coin that language to make it relatable to people. An actionable safe space is really about you being able to move without reacting and being inactive in your life. And that was something I struggled with my entire life. So that's something I've been coaching people on for decades. The thing is, what I did not know was how to tell people, this is what it's called. This is how you get it. This is what it looks like. This is what it doesn't look like. I just could talk about the philosophy around it. Well, there's fear and then there's stress and these mindset blocks and the neuroscience of it. And nobody cares about all that. What they want to know is, okay, so I got this thing that's troubling me. What do I do about that? And so making what you want to say when you're a philosopher relatable and palatable to people so that they can actually swallow it, that's what I feel came from the branding. And I'm eternally grateful because I told you this when I first met you, I've spent tens of thousands of dollars with brand experts and I still don't understand what branding is and how to create it for me. But none of them talked to me about brand architecture. Nobody told me that there was different ways to niche. They just told me, you need to specialize. Well, I'm like, I'm already specialized. What do you want from me, right? And you were the only person that saw that. And then also, yes, you can be verbose and say all the things, but why aren't you speaking more? Why aren't you writing more? It's like, I don't know. People told me to shut up. They told me to make it more concise. Yeah. And if you remember, that's why I decided to invest with you, even though I had been like watching you for years on social media. I decided to invest because I was like, yeah, no one ever has told me about these things. Brand architecture, you can speak your mind, you can use all the words that you want, you do not have to tone it down. No one ever said those things. And that allowed me to have the freedom to actually come up with my language for my philosophy, which is what's increased my branding. I know how to talk about what I've been trying to say for years and what I paid those brand experts to help me get out of me for years. They just couldn't do it. To sit down with you and you was like, okay, so this is your truth? That's really easy to talk about. Here are some ways that you could talk about it. And I was like, well, it never came up with that. That's not easy, but it's okay. It's easy for you. So that's why we don't keep working with you. And that's that. Because I would have never come up with the Ratchet Sage. I was just saying, I'm a Ratchet Sage. I'm a bold domino. I'm a philosopher thinker. I would have never thought to call myself the Ratchet Sage or to call my business Authentic Distinction. Had 5 paragraphs, not 3 words, actionable safe spaces. And like you said, I've been doing the most with it. Social ass. It's not just the terms. It's also just explaining to people. The ashy comes from that as well. You know, you can't move. If you're ashy, you might start a fire, right? You need some lubrication, right? Get you some WD-40, right? Get you some Vaseline, some cocoa butter. And so it's all makes sense. It's not just, oh, some cute things to say. You can back it up with the philosophy if I need to, but those are the words that catch people. Memorable, repeatable, relatable. And then I can back it all up with, oh, here's the neuroscience. And did you read this? And do you know about this? And this is how this works. I can always do that for days later, but you can't hit people with that up front.
So going into 2023, what does that look like for the Ratchet Sage versus what it looks like for Authentic Distinction? Because I know you're saying that you're changing the business model for this. What does that look like for you?
The business model is really focusing on my community and my networking efforts, right? In terms of the business, because everything is already set up for the business. I don't need anything to build. I don't have to launch anything. Whatever's being launched is going to be launched. And cutting back on some of the launches that I was doing in 2021, 2022, because it's just not necessary. That allows me to have more time to be on podcasts, to get on stages, to be on people's talk shows, and to actually develop the relationships for that. Because, you know, I'm a homebody. And I'm really discerning about who I have relationships with. So I need to be choosy, continue to be choosy about who I develop a relationship with, but understand that I can go on somebody's podcast and there's no relationship. That's what I'm learning throughout this season. And so the Ratchet Sage has got to do way more brand leadership. I need to lead my brand. I've been leading the business for a couple of years and the business is good. Ain't no more systems to build, no more automations to set up. I've done all the work. Now it's time for me to actually let people know the Ratchet Sage is here. This is my message. And if you want to do more work, Authentic Distinctions over there. And so it's more deprioritizing the business and centering the Ratchet Sage and my message.
I love it. I love it. And so you guys know, Ebony had how many offers when I met you? 30?
A little bit over 30, but yeah.
Over 30. How many do
Mhm.
you have now?
I still have all of those offers. How many am I actually pushing? Ooh.
There you go. I love that. I love that. Okay. When you were asking me earlier about you stepping into this role, not necessarily this role, but stepping into this space. And like you said, you're a homebody. So I know it's you stepping out of your comfort zone to do this and be the face and the representation, even doing the constant lives. I promise you, when we were doing collaborations, this chick straight up told us, I'm not doing no live. I ain't getting on no live. I'm not ready for no live. She flat out refused. Now she goes live by herself with her own theme music and she's like, bitch, I don't need y'all. I got this.
Listen, my Ghetto Country Brandmother told me that there was no punks allowed. So I just was
No,
like, let me stop being a punk.
no
Let me
punks
get
allowed
out
for real.
there.
So when you're looking for, based on your brand and how you represent, what type of podcast do you think that you're looking for that you want to represent on? Because there does have to be that alignment there, that you're borrowing an audience that is conducive to you. So who do you see being in that space based on the conversation?
It's interesting. I haven't identified who, but I can tell you what types of conversations I really like
Okay.
being involved in. So I like it when conversations are serious. Like I don't see myself going on a podcast where there's a lot of laughing and did you see this and kikiing about stuff. I don't really care about that. And then also talking about current events in ways that are not really meaningful. Like we could talk about what Kanye doing all day and who this person's dating and this person's having another child. Do you really care about that? I like to talk about things that people really, really care about that are really going to make an impact on your current life. And I find that there are podcasts that are a little bit more serious about things like that. I've actually been thinking recently, and you can tell me what you think as my grandmother, but I've been thinking that it actually might make sense for me to do less teaching, less business podcasts, and more, hey, I'm Ebony, this is what I actually think about this. I don't like this. I do like this, and really giving people an opportunity to get to know who the Ratchet Sage is, so they'll better understand the message when it comes out of my mouth. Like understand the woman, understand the message, and the woman behind the message. I've been playing with that a little bit of like, even with my lives, thinking about doing like maybe something on like a Saturday morning, like Saturday morning coffee with Ebony. And it's like, I'm still in my bonnet and I'm like, we gonna talk about this. I'm celebrating this. And this week was hard because I'm just trying to think of ways to actually connect with people through humanity, right? Just I'm a human too, right? Versus the, hi, here's my intro. Subscribe and just like, what is going on with y'all folks today kind of thing. And I've been thinking about doing that. So even if it's just 5-10 minutes on Instagram each night and being like, let's just close out the night. What the hell happened to y'all today? Let's just chat. Really engaging folks. But I got to get out there and actually do that networking. And so there's going to be a couple of nights where I'm going to get on Instagram Live and it's nobody, just crickets. But if I keep doing it, eventually people will start to show up. But when I first started going live on my YouTube and my Facebook, there was no one. And then I got a couple of subscribers and now some people are actually joining me live, which is nice. So I think these things take time and you don't want to let them dissuade you. But I think that's what my 2023 is looking like. It's really Ebony as the Ratchet Sage getting out there and leading this brand. I need to build it. It's not built. It's in here and you and I know it, but it got to get out there. And that's my responsibility to get it out there. And that's what I think 2023 has got to be my focus. I've got to focus on that.
And you asking me that, what I'm seeing is that there's a level of representation there. It might not show up on other people's podcasts, but it can definitely show up on yours as a segment of your podcast. If there is, when you think about the strategy of your podcast in and of itself, one, it's about creating brand awareness. We know that this is like, so you can become aware of the Ratchet Sage and Authentic Distinction. So that's part of your strategy behind the podcast. But then there's also a level of, okay, this segment is about thought leadership. So this is what I want other people who are booking events to possibly hear. This is something that I can turn into a keynote. And this is things that you know what, this is what I have a strong opinion about. So when you begin to break out those segments of different parts of what it is that you want to represent, then it shows up that way, because this comes from your core message. When we talk about your DNA, when we talk about the things that you stand for, the ethical part of you, then that's the part that shows up. And these are the things that you can now turn into, you know what, can you come and do a talk about that? So you're able to take whatever that little 5 or 10 minute message was at the end. You know what, we're going to wrap this up with a moment with Ebony, or we're going to wrap this up with a moment with the Ratchet Sage, or whatever you decide to brand that under. You know what, we're going to wrap this up with some type of ass. And so this is actionable safe space about this. Let's talk about it. And so that particular segment is what helps put you on the map for, say, public speaking. People want to like, can you unpack that some more? Can you come speak to our people about this? And it's just a small segment of your overall podcast. Whether you do it as its own thing, as a live on Instagram or Facebook or anywhere else, that's fine. But if you're doing it from your platform of your podcast, then it becomes, you know what, it's time for the 5 minutes of whatever, like I said, whatever, however you decide to brand that particular piece. It becomes, you know what, this is when I take off the Ratchet Sage and we just gonna have a conversation about some shit. This is what's going on in the world, and this is what needs to change in order for it to be better. This is what's going on in the coaching industry that we need to change, that is not working. This is how this is being harmed, because this is the real Ratchet Sage. I'm taking off the gloves. We about to talk about some shit. Y'all gonna get mad. Y'all can either stay mad or you can leave. Whatever, however you're going to present that piece. So I definitely see that as being a thing. And then going out, and once you fully embrace the whole podcast part of it, now it's like, okay, let me step out here and start looking for calls for speakers. Because I'm gonna turn that 5 minute thing into a 45 speaking engagement, because I think this is powerful. I think this needs to be expanded. I think it needs to be unpacked, because while you're talking, because like I said, I know how your mind works. While you're talking, you're unpacking shit. It may not all come out of your mouth, but I know I've seen you do it. And so to now take a 5 minute segment and turn it into a keynote, you know what? We need to present this over here. But it's with the understanding that, you know, certain conferences and whatever things that are coming out, they come out 6 to 9 months. You have to start pitching for them 6 to 9 months out. And so if you're doing something now, it's like, okay, I could talk about this in October because I know this conference is coming up. Or if you know, because like I said, we talk about planning, we talk about goals, we talk about what you want to be famous for. So if one of your goals is to do public speaking, and you know you want to be on this platform, then you might want to start creating material within that 5 minute segment to go with this. You know what? They want to hear me speak. Let me speak on it right here. And so now you have a place that when they say, you know what, give us a reference of when you talked about this. Here's the last 3 episodes of my podcast.
Right.
Because it's already there.
Even if I'm still teaching on my podcast, what you're saying is I could always have like a real life segment with the Ratchet Sage or something like that, like a segment that I would brand, call it something, and every single time people could look forward to that, where it's just like, this is just what Ebony thinks.
Yes.
And I just think giving people an opportunity to know me would be useful.
Yeah.
And what I think about things, my opinion versus my philosophies. Because my philosophies don't necessarily tell you my opinion.
And there you go. So it could be, you know what, that your opinionated side, or like I said, there's so many different things that can come from this, from you being the Ratchet Sage. It's like, okay, this is a part of the Ratchet Sage you don't know. Because I you know, I'm big on light branded business, and they're all connected. There's no code switching. So when I take off the Ratchet Sage, Ebony got an opinion. So let's talk about some shit. Because when you get ready to step on that stage, they're going to call Ebony L Green. That's whose name they're calling. They're not calling the Ratchet Sage. So when you take that 5 minutes of your segment, it's like, you know what? Let's take off the Ratchet Sage and let's talk about this shit. Let's be human to human. Let's be people. Let's get an understanding. And so being able to take that persona off, and you know, I'm big on the boundaries of it. Ghetto Country Brandmother is a boundary. But when I take it off, and you're gonna get the full feelings, because you know what? You can't stand more than 5 minutes of all this brilliance. So
Period.
you're giving them 5 minutes of the brilliance that you are outside of the Ratchet Sage. And they get to own that. I was reading a book, and the guy was saying that on his podcast, he allows his family to share something about him. And so when he does public speaking, he's
Wow.
already connected with the audience, because, oh, I was a big baby. Oh, I was doing this. Oh, I love that movie. And so there's a connection there before you even get on stage, and it makes you more comfortable, but then it also makes the people feel like they know you. It's not putting all your business in the street. It's not showing no fucking breakfast. It's none of that. But it's like, you know what? Let me shed this a little bit, and let me show you guys a little personal side.
Mm-hmm.
And so it gives you that opportunity to share. This is Ebony. This is not the Ratchet Sage talking to you right now. This is Ebony. Whether I'm talking as a mom, whether I'm talking as a parent, as a sister, as a solopreneur, whatever. This is Ebony talking. So there's a level of vulnerability there that people will appreciate. And there's a level of transparency that they don't normally get to see. And it might be, you know what, you may do your podcast every week. And yes, you do your podcast every week. But in that week, or within those 4 weeks, you might only do this segment once a month, because y'all don't need to know everything every week about me. Or you may do every other week. However you space it out, it becomes something like, oh, you know what, I'll make sure I'm listening this week because I want to know a little bit more about Ebony. It gives you the opportunity also, when event planners are doing their thing, they get to know a little bit more about you. They know, like, oh, I can work with her. No, she's not right for me, because they have to protect their energy and their vibe and their space as well. So
And
if
that's
they
not for
have,
everybody.
yeah, because they have to have their actionable safe space. So it creates this thing where, you know what, if you really want to know who I am, you can check out this episode. Here's where I talk about this. Here's where I talk about this. And you have some place to send people. So even when you're sending, you're putting out a pitch, say if you think something that you know can represent well on a stage that somebody has, is you're pitching, or, well, you know, I don't believe in pitching, but in these instances, for calls to speaker, you have to pitch unless they come in and ask for you. But if you're going to pitch that particular thing, you can link to a segment. You know what? The last 5 minutes of this, I want you to listen. This is the premise of this thing. Because whenever you do public speaking, they always like, well, what's 3 things that our audience can walk away with? And maybe in that last 5 minutes, whatever you're highlighting, it covers those 3 things.
Right. I like that. It's almost like pre-planning.
Yes.
To be a meaningful choice for these options. I mean, I think that's part of the problem when you haven't been out here. You just feel like you're applying and applying and applying, just hear no, 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 no. But it does resonate with me that there are some things that I could do now so that I would be more appealing when I put in those applications. That's interesting to think about for the strategy for 2023.
Yeah.
I'm writing notes.
Yeah. And especially since you're deciding that there are certain stages that you want to be on. And this is why when we did the 2-word brand, when I said, where do you want to be invited to? If you want to be invited, you need to create content that will get you invited. So I know I want to be here, so let me create this type of content because it's aligned with where I want to be. So I know I can speak on something that is helpful to this particular audience. And then knowing what call to action you're going to have once you finish that particular speaking thing.
And it's almost like you want to make sure that you're not choosing things that are too lofty. Because I remember when you asked, and I was like, well, I want to be on I want to be on Lovey Johnny Jones's podcast, and I want to be on a TED Talk. And I think a lot of those things end up happening because you are asked to come because you created your brand.
You created the path.
Right. Yes. And so now they're saying, hey, you should come over here. I think it's more important. And so I'm thinking about this for myself for 2023 to create the midway pipeline. Like, where do I want to go before those places start asking me to come? Because they're going to come. They're going to ask me. But where am I going before then to prepare myself for those stages? What does that look like? And I don't think I understand what that midpoint is. We watch TED Talks all the time, and you listen to top-notch podcasts all the time, but those are not the places, Brene Brown's not going to come out and say, hey, Ebony can be on my podcast until I start ruffling up some stuff and creating some disruption, like you say. When that happens, then I'll be invited. But I think in the meantime, where am I creating this disruption so that I can't be invited in the future? And so setting myself up, that's what I'm getting from this, that I need to be not only creating content, but mindful of how I'm creating content, thinking about segments, thinking about if I'm going to do like a morning coffee thing, what is the purpose? Is that where Ebony speaks and just says, listen, let's just keep it real, all the way real, take all the hats off? This is what I honestly think about this. Like, one of the things that I'm really upset about, I think people spend so much time trying to figure out what's going on with these celebrities, and they don't even know what's going on in their life. Bothers me to death. And that's probably going to be the first thing I talk about in one of these segments, is like, you wondering why your life sucks? Because you know more about Tory Lane, Megan Thee Stallion than you do about you. That's why. You got an opinion about what's going on in their life, and you don't even know the facts, when you don't even have an opinion about what's going on in your life, and only you have the facts. Yeah, I want to have that conversation, but it's little things like that I don't really see the philosophy and necessarily how to tie it back into ass. So it's not really for the Ratchet Sage or for Authentic Distinction. But Ebony feels this way strongly, and definitely feels like you're not going to stay in an actionable safe space. You're more worried about celebrities than yourself. So I do think there's a way to tie it back in, but I just didn't really think about like, oh, make it separate, do a separate segment. Maybe your morning coffees could be used for that. I think about Lenise and how she does her parking lot pimping on Instagram. And I'm like, just morning something. I don't know what I'm gonna call it. I'm horrible with names, but
the thing I like that I heard you say was that the taking off all the hats for one, but then also recognizing that this is why it's called strategy. You have to be strategic about your shit. And so when you find that first place, it's like, okay, what is the shortest distance from here to here? And for people that don't understand brand strategy, she said that, this doesn't belong with an ass statement. It's not about an actionable safe space. It is about, this is my opinion. So, and this is why branding has to be that consistent for you, that she automatically knows, this is not an actionable safe space kind of conversation. This is me having a fucking opinion. And you get to own that. But when your message is all over the place, because normally my brand is this, but I'm gonna talk about this shit today, and so you're making it represent your brand, and now people start to see disconnect. It does not relate to the thing that you're trying to build. So that right there that's why that's going to be powerful. You know what? This is not the Ratchet Sage right now. Don't tie this to my brand. This is me giving my fucking opinion. And that you get to own that part of it, because you created that boundary around, what? I tell people now that, Phyllis is petty. Ghetto Country Brandmother, she has to rein in her pettiness. I get that, because I promise you, I will get petty and lay your shit bare in a heartbeat if I get caught up in a conversation. So this is why I say, when I talk about brilliance, sweetie, I'm not talking about everything that makes you great. We have some flaws.
Yes, because Ebony will knock all this shit over. Ebony has an attitude. You know what I'm saying? Ebony does not always play nice in the sandbox. But the Ratchet Sage, she knows how to act when she's in public, and her mama trained her right. You know what I'm saying? But Ebony's a hooligan. She's a rascal.
I'm not a hooligan.
It's true. It's true. But yeah, I can receive that. I hope y'all receive that. Are y'all listening to these gems? You can't be talking to the Ghetto Country Brandmother and not have a pen and a piece of paper somewhere. It's gonna be a bunch of stuff coming up. So I have a lot of stuff to change. Another thing I was thinking about is working with someone to do like a podcast where I'm feeding off of someone's energy, because I do that really well. I noticed that in the houses on Clubhouse, that when I'm up there and it's other moderators and we're feeding off, like, for some reason that works for me. When I have 100% of the spotlight on me, it's a little weird. And the ideas don't come as quickly. So I was thinking about doing that, is finding like a permanent person, like, want to do a podcast together? This is like, we're just talking about random things from each of our different perspectives. So that might be coming in the works. I've been talking with someone about that behind the scenes, so we'll see how that goes.
There you go.
So but that's another avenue of like shedding the layers, and just, this is Ebony having a conversation with this person, and look what they said, oh snaps, kind of thing. But you know, a lot of what I personally believe goes into my
Yes.
business and my
Yeah.
philosophical beliefs, because that's where it's born from. Like if it saved my
Yes.
life, that's what I'm coaching people on.
Yes.
So there is always a connection. And I think that that's why it's going to be really useful in 2023 as a strategy to take away all the labels and the hats. Because quite frankly, I think it's a good strategy to shed the layers and to shed because people tend to think like she's always on. I'm not always on. And it's because you've never seen me off. And when you see the difference between when I'm just being Ebony, but still talking about actionable safe spaces, because that's all I live and breathe in,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yes.
it's what saves my life every day, is to be in an actionable safe space and to stay in one. So of course, that's going to be a big part of the things I talk about, but there's a difference between the way Ebony talks about it, between the way the Ratchet Sage talks about it, between the way that the authentic distinction helps you get to one. There's a difference. And I'm not showcasing to people what Ebony talks about. So there's a little bit of a disconnect where they're just not seeing the humanity. They just meet this professor. It's like, oh, Bart, let me break all this down for you. And when people get a chance to actually just network with me and be like, well, girl, what you think about this? Or I'm struggling with this. Well, what do you think? And I'm feeding off of other people's reality. They're able to connect with me in a human way. And maybe it allows us to bypass some of the autistic stuff, but I find that I have better connections with people when there's something to feed off of.
Yeah.
And
And
so
you're like Neil. Neil he feels uncomfortable and strange. He's like, baby, he's more natural when we're talking together. Like when we almost actually got a show on the Food Network. And it was because of how we feed off each other, and not food wise. but but when we're interacting and we're engaging and we're just being like in our husband and wife mode, you might see me slap him on his forehead for being silly, or he gives me that look that only a husband can give me and still curl my toes. And so being able to feed off of those things makes a difference versus I just have to try and find something interesting, because now you are trying to be on instead of being natural. Neil has moved into voiceover. Yeah. Neil has moved into voiceover. And the reason voiceover is okay for him is because it's kind of scripted, but he still has to find a way to sound natural depending on what it is. Versus if he has to get on the show and represent something, it doesn't come. I'm like, baby, what was wrong with you? That's not you. That's not how you talk. He's like, I know. And it makes a difference. And part of another thing that you were talking about is that people seeing more of Ebony. I was in a Clubhouse room, and you know I don't go on Clubhouse nearly as much as I used to, and this is one of the reasons why. Some fuck shit. But in one of the rooms that I jumped into, the woman was saying that people want to know her personal business. They want to know how I'm doing and she's asking how much should she share. Sweetie, that's a personal choice. Because if you do not want to share your accident and what happened and all the things, people have to respect that. But for some reason, because social media has made that a thing and people feel like they have a right to know, you still have a right to keep some things to yourself. And that's why I say, if you run up to me on the streets and you say, hey, Ghetto Country Brandmother, that's the only way you know me. But I might be in Phyllis mode in a pissed off mood, and you run up on me and you might get socked in the jaw because you ran up too quickly. And I'm very aware of my spaces. But when you call me Phyllis, I know that you know me. I know that you've seen me probably at my ugliest, which doesn't get nearly as ugly as it used to when I was in my 20s, but still.
say that. We done grown. We done grown.
And so you get to define that space. And this is why I'm so adamant about, when you're talking about a personal brand, creating that separation. If Phyllis is my personal brand, it makes hard for others to see that separation, that line. It's like, sweetie, you can't cross right here. Oh, well, I can't come in health. No, this is personal. Oh, well, the people have a right to know. The fuck? This is why celebrities have so many issues and stalkers and all that shit. And it's created this world where you guys want to know everything, but you don't want to sit down and have a conversation. You want to judge and have opinions and tear people down, but you don't want to have the conversation. And it makes for some raggedy ass shit. To have a reputation is one thing. To build a brand is something totally different. But people are building reputations and calling it a brand. It's some fuck shit. So when
And
you step out,
they can't even live up to them. So it's
thank
not
you.
even authentic.
Yes, that part right there.
It's upsetting. It's upsetting me and my girlfriends.
And mind you, this is some of the shit that Ebony and I bonded over once we started working together. And it's how we ended up in a collaboration, because we don't feel that people are given enough space to be themselves, for one, and secondly, to be able to keep some things to themselves. I don't need to see you dance and do whatever it is that you do when you're in the privacy of your home, unless it's business related. That's not going to make me buy anything from you. I really don't care.
Because I mean, unless it's authentic, right? And we've talked about this before.
Yes.
There are people who were online showing ass anyway. They was already doing the dances and all the things. But if you never did that, you just gonna start doing it because that's what entrepreneurs do on social media. Get out of here.
Yeah.
Get out of
It's some fuck
here.
shit. It's some fuck shit.
And it's funny. We'll keep laughing at you. Thank you for the comment. Sometimes you need comedy in your life.
Yeah. And one of the things that I want to say before we go ahead and wrap this up, and this is why I don't buy into the everything is content. When you're a content creator, yes, that is very true. Yes, I will say that. But when you're trying to build something that is not built around content creation, everything is not content. The only people that believe that shit are the platforms. Because as long as you keep creating content, the longer they can keep selling ads. So that's why everything is content. That's why I need to see you smear that jelly on your toast. And that's why you have zero engagement. They told you to create some content, but nobody's checking for your ass. They scroll right past you.
Or if that's the reason why they're checking for you, is that really what you're proud of? Because you talked all day about Tory Lane and Megan Thee Stallion, so you feel good about yourself. Is that what you really want to be proud of yourself for?
That thing. And then when you step out of that and you go over here and you try to live your life, oh, well, they want to talk to you about the shit that you consider your job. I'm trying to sit there and have a drink. Why are you asking me about that person? Well, isn't that what you do? That's what I do. That's not who I am. Sweetie, I do branding. I talk branding. I'm like Ebony. I talk branding all day long. It excites the fuck out of me. But there are times that I have to lay that shit down because one, I'm a wife. Two, I'm a mama. Three, I don't give a fuck no more when I'm done.
I'll tell you this, I wasn't telling nobody about my love life before, so just becoming an entrepreneur, it ain't gonna happen today. Like, I just think you have to have boundaries, and I think people they're not clear on what their boundaries are for them. So then they get into entrepreneurship and they go, well, they're doing it, so I don't have to have a boundary against it. And it's like, but you already had a boundary against it. Yeah. So why are you not? You're denigrating yourself. You're diluting your greatness, trying to be like other people. It's disgusting. But people do it. People do it, and I think while it is difficult to sit back and go, what is true for me as a strategy for my branding and my marketing for the next year or the next quarter or the next week or month, like however far you planning ahead. For me, I'm looking at year-end planning, but it is hard to come up with what is true for me. But I know it doesn't look like what these other jokers out here doing. And I know it's something that's going to be pulled out of me based upon the conversations I want to have, the people I want to start being able to impact, but also the people I want to start networking and brushing elbows with. It's time to reclaim my time and put it in places where there can be more impact for this message. I'm answering a call, and I've been playing small, pretending like there ain't no call, and I didn't answer it. I'm sick and tired of that. We ain't gonna keep doing that. And it's time to get out there, and that means that I've actually got to start impacting with people, not just clients.
There you go. There you go. But there's one story I want Ebony to share. It is so my favorite story. Do you know which one it is? The Facebook disagreement.
Oh my goodness. You're gonna take it back to that. I totally forgot about that, chica. Yeah, this person, this human being, was reaching out to me and was trying to get me in their magazine. And like I said, I had this hang up about, well, if I don't resonate with you, I'm not doing anything with you. Like that, I feel like that's me giving my endorsement. If people see that I'm doing it over there, they're going to be like, oh, this person must be cool because Ebony's doing it over there. So I was like kind of pushing the person off. Like, I don't really know what's going on. Then I checked out the e-zine and I was like, this is some bullshit. I definitely don't want to be showcasing this. Like, I don't do janky stuff. You know me. I will push back a launch so that it can be launched correctly. I don't do janky stuff. So I looked at the e-zine and I was like, this is janky. Okay, I'm not doing this. So months went by, just months of like every 2 months, her reaching out via Facebook Messenger and being like, hey, you're going to be in the e-zine, and me being like, still haven't checked it out. Reach out to you when I do, which is usually like code for like, leave me alone. I'm not interested, right? While trying to be nice. But I wasn't being authentic and really telling the person. So this particular day she reached out, it had been about a year, and I was like, listen, I'm not really sure that this is a good fit for me, and was like really setting the boundary and being more authentic, and instead of just kind of brushing her off. And at the time, the response from her was like, kind of pushy back, like, this is not okay, and you've been seeming like you want to do this. And I was just like, listen, let's just be clear. This is what's really going on, and having that conversation. But then I thought, this is content for my market, to let them know that this is ashy. Like, one, this is not the way to develop relationships. This is not the way to connect with people. You're just hounding people. But it's also just like, it's almost as if there was like a reminder that would go off in her systems that would say, oh, follow up with these people. It wasn't like, you don't even know what I do to even, why do you want me in your magazine? You don't even know who I am and what I do. And so that was like part of the issue. And so I was letting people know, this is inauthentic. This is not a way to get to an actionable safe space. If you're trying to fill up your podcast or your e-zine or whatever, you want to develop an authentic connection with someone. Don't just keep reaching out. Reaching out is not going to get you a connection. And this person jumps on and goes, I would never talk about it, because I had put the screenshot up and I blurred out the name. So it was anonymous posting about this is what not to do. But then she outed herself and was like, yeah, I can't believe that you're putting this out there, and I would never talk about someone publicly like this. And I was like, well, you're not me, and I would never tell someone what they should or should not do. So there's like this whole back and forth going on in the comments, but I didn't let it get to an argument. I literally sat there. I think at one point I pulled out the Miss Landry gif where she's like eating the popcorn. And I was like, we just eating popcorn, watching you just divulge all of your stuff, because this woman was just going into like why she was coming towards me and why it was okay. And I'm just like taking it all in. To make a long story short, at the end, it was like, I got a new client out of it. I hit her with like string, I want to say like a long paragraph on Facebook of just a bunch of questions. Like, what makes you think that we had a relationship? What makes you think that this is okay? How do you normally operate with people? Is this how you normally operate? Like a bunch of coaching questions that I would have asked her if she were my client. Because I was like, this is really getting out of pocket. Like at first it was funny, but now you're really making yourself look really bad. And this is what we do when we're not in an actionable safe space. We just make it worse by reacting, right? And that's exactly what she was doing. So I was letting her know, while also letting my market know, who's peeping all of this, right? This is what I mean by don't react, because you'll stay in outside of an actionable safe space. And she was just proving it. And so eventually I was like, no, actually, let me try to help her, right? This has gone beyond content. Now we're into impact land. Got to do something. And so I just started hitting her with a bunch of questions like, this is something for you to consider. And you do not have to answer back for any of us, because this is not for us, this is for you. But honestly, consider these things. And about the next day or 2 days later, I got a private message from her saying, anyone who could gather me like that publicly, I would like to see what you could do with me privately. And I got a new client for the whole year. A year-long coaching client, which any coach can tell you, usually, it's easy to sell an offer to people, but getting someone to sign up for a whole year. But it's like, yeah, the Ratchet Sage get to you publicly, you might want to get to me privately so that you don't have to get checked publicly again. And I guess that was the whole story. But I think that that's actually a great story to let people know like what they're working with. Like, I am not here to play with your greatness. And I mean that. So if you want to play with your greatness, that's fine. Go over there with them people. They playing with the greatness over there. Over here, we are creating an impact. We are leading a vision. We are going to change the world with our greatness. And while I believe every human has the capacity, I don't know that every human is choosing that. And so I like to work with those who are choosing that. And sometimes people need to be gathered and pulled to the side and said, listen, you're looking kind of crazy. Here's some lotion, for them to realize, wow, I actually do really need to work with her. And that was one of those situations. But yeah, $20,000 later. Yeah. And I mean, I love stories like that because it really showcases how you can make an impact by just being yourself. Like, I just thought my market needs to see that this is some foolishness and don't do this. And why? Once again, just me being a teacher, professor, like I always am. But that person being triggered and reacting created a larger conversation of like, this is why reaction keeps you from an actionable safe space as well. So don't do this either. And then it was like, let me help this person. But in helping her publicly, it was, I think I need your help privately. And I think that's an opportunity for everyone who does healing work or restorative work or any kind of work that's meaningful that will make a change for someone. If you're transformative, don't be afraid to get out there and use your voice, because you will impact people. And when they need more, they will come to you. I never anticipated that that woman was going to come. I thought she felt checked and that she was done. And it was like, no, anybody who could check me like that in public, I need them to check me in private. And I got a client. That's the story.
And I wanted her, and I love this story, but I wanted her to tell this story because part of branding is knowing your ethical and value-based stand that you take. And even though she went at this from a point of, you know what, this is content, her brand was such that, you know what, I am still this thing. This is what I stand 10 toes down in. Let me change the direction of this. If she did not have those instilled values, if she was still being well, she was never an unethical coach, but had she been out of her ethical place, she would have continued the argument and continued the whole thing. But there are values based on your branding, especially at the solopreneur level. And she stepped into that. It's like, you know what? This is a conversation that we need to have now. This is what my business is all about. This is what my brand is about. These are the type of people that I help.
Mm-hmm.
And she stepped into that. It went from being this back and forth between me and this person to, you know what? So that's the power of branding, because it tapped into the values that I stand for.
Yes.
And I don't stand for you being harmed in this way.
Nope. Or the keying that's about to happen because you're making yourself look ridiculous. Let's pause this. Let's ask a bunch of questions that are actually going to try to turn this around for you and everyone, so people could see what's really going on here, because this wasn't meant to make fun of you. That's why it was anonymous until you decided to come and say, hey, why'd you post our conversation? Nobody knew it was our conversation.
Dude, you said it. Yes. And I saw it. I promise y'all. I saw the post, and when the woman came, I was like, wow, you just outed your own self. Why would you do that? So
because she genuinely didn't see anything ashy about what she had done.
Mm-hmm.
And when she could see that over time, I think that's when she realized, I do need some work. Let me go get this lotion. So y'all come get your lotion.
That part. But then also her not recognizing the power of branding was that she thought that I just have to be, I won't say not belligerent. What's the word I'm looking for?
Persistent.
Yes, persistent. I just have to be persistent to get the sale. Sweetie, if you have a brand and you rely on that brand to do the heavy lifting, you don't have to keep putting those reminders in your calendar to bug the fuck out of people, especially when you're doing one-to-one stuff. It's about, you know what? They don't need me now, but they might need me later. And so you have that level of respect. That's the shirt Ebony's wearing, Respectful Rebellion. That's what that's all about. I'm gonna respectfully rebel against all the bullshit. I respect what you're going through. You don't need me right now, that's fine. But if I'm still showing you respect, you might send somebody to me. Y'all don't think about that. Or you know what? I don't like that bitch, but you need to go work with her. Because I know there are people I do not like. You need to go work with them. Because that does not diminish their value. Because I don't like you, sweetie. I tell y'all, I love you and ain't a damn thing you can do about it. But I don't have to like you. Two different things.
And know that people need to come get that work from you. Yep, there are people I do not fuck with, but I still send people to, yes. Because they're great at what they do.
Yes. That part. That part. So we're going to go ahead and wrap this up. But before we do, Ebony, tell them where they can get in touch with you, what they can do with you, and all the good things. Come on, sweetie.
Listen, y'all can find me at ebonylgreen.com, learn all about the Ratchet Sage. You can find me at ownyourdifference.com or authenticdistinction.com. They'll both send you to the same place where you can see what I got to offer for y'all. If y'all interested in working with the Ratchet Sage or booking a consultation, you can find me at authenticdistinction.com and ebonylgreen.com.
There you go. And y'all can follow her on all her platforms. Tell them your handles.
Oh yes, I'm at Authentic Distinction everywhere except for Twitter and YouTube because they limit in characters. So that's where you'll find me at True Distinction.
So I just wanted y'all to have that conversation because, like I said, Ebony is amazing at what she does. And to give people the opportunity to find their unique resolution. And it's not just coaches. She focuses on coaches. So let me be clear. She focuses on close coaches, but that's not her only bread and butter. But the thing she markets, when I tell y'all about something that's going to get them through the door, the people that see the impact she has on coaches, I ain't no coach, but chick, I need your ass. That's the whole point. You so busy thinking that, you know what, I'm not going to limit myself. I need everybody. The fact is, everybody's already looking at you. They're looking how powerful you're showing up for that particular crowd. And it's like, I want somebody to show up like that for me. So they come and they get that work. That's the thing. That's all I got for y'all today. We're going to go ahead and close this out so y'all know I got to do it. 5, bullshit happens. So suck it up. 4, your voice is important. So speak up. 3, you make the world a more beautiful place. So show up. 2, life is good. So buck up. And 1, I love you and ain't a damn thing you can do about it. So shut the fuck up. Peace and hair grease, y'all.